Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning, episode 464, back on the topic of the NFL. Today, Jay and I are going to be looking at why we think the Tennessee Titans are in big trouble. Obviously, a lot of movements from their in free agency with their team, so we're going to be talking about today why we think they're in trouble. But before we get into the video, we want to hear, as far as the question today, we want to hear who you think, or who is your favorite Titans player ever. Again, stick around to the end of the video, and Jay and I will talk about who our favorite Titans player is. But Jay, again, why do you think this Titans team is in big trouble?
Yeah, just to define it, in trouble, I don't think they're going to be a top 10 draft pick. I don't think they'll even be negative for their record. I think how we're talking big trouble, I think they will miss the playoffs, in my personal opinion, just because of the adds and losses in this offseason. I think the Titans have definitely lost more than they have added to their team. The biggest one that stands out to me, which isn't even a player, is going to be their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, which Ryan Tannehill succeeded with a lot. And really, now we're going to see Ryan Tannehill without his offensive coordinator that made his magic work. We've seen in the past when an offensive coordinator leaves a guy, he's not the same. Kyle Shanahan left Matt Ryan the Super Bowl year, never been the same. Frank Wright left Carson Wentz. He hasn't been the same with the Eagles. Now he's going to be reunited. And now Ryan Tannehill, it's his turn, losing his offensive coordinator. And not only is he losing him, he's losing his offensive weapons as well. He still has his number one guy in A.J. Brown, great wideout who's very young and is emerging and might be a top receiver soon. But he can't do it alone after the Titans just lost Jonnu Smith in free agency to the Patriots, Corey Davis in free agency to the Jets, and they released a underrated slot receiver in Adam Humphries, in my opinion. A lot of great hands. A lot of chemistry Ryan Tannehill had with, and a lot of red zone targets that he is missing out on. And I just think Ryan Tannehill, I think he's an underrated quarterback, and I think he can still deserve a starting job. I don't think he's awful, but Derrick Henry, unless he rushes for another 2,000 yards, Ryan Tannehill is going to have too much on his plate, and he's not Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers where he could carry dog crap. I think Ryan Tannehill will take a step back, and the Titans will take a step back offensively, and I'll go into defense later in the video.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think for me, even Titans being in big trouble is they're going to be 9-7-ish, but I still think they're certainly in contention for the AFC South and winning that and eventually going to the playoffs. Obviously, Jay and I have different opinions on how the Colts are going to be. He thinks they'll be better than I do, so I still think the Titans are in the front for the division. But what I see is an offense that now is putting a lot of pressure on their key guys, including Ryan Tannehill, who's a guy that's not going to be an MVP caliber quarterback. He's going to be a role player that just plays solid football. With respect to the receivers, now you leave A.J. Brown to pick up a lot of slack. Like Jay said, no more Jonnu Smith, no more Corey Davis. Adam Humphries released, so now you're putting so much pressure on A.J. Brown to pick up the slack from those guys. Obviously, A.J. Brown is a good young receiver. I have a lot of faith in him, but I'm not sure if I have that much for him to pick up that slack. And you're also putting basically your entire offense on the back of Derrick Henry, which if you're going to have one running back in the league to do that, I'm picking Derrick Henry. But we've seen that he's not perfect. A good run defense like what we saw in Baltimore or in Tennessee against Baltimore this last playoff. A good run defense can hold him to basically nothing and shut him down and essentially shut the whole offense down, because they are a running first oriented offense that opens up Tannehill's passing game when Derrick Henry is running the football well. So I think this puts a lot of pressure on Derrick Henry. Not that he can't handle it, but I do think this sets up a situation for the Titans that when Derrick Henry is not on, their passing game is just not going to be good enough, and they're going to struggle to score points if Derrick Henry is not on in a given day.
Yeah. And even if me and Carson are both miraculously wrong and Ryan Tannehill just does fine, A.J. Brown could carry, Derrick Henry goes for another 1,800-yard season, and they do just fine. Offense wasn't an issue, and now it is in our opinion, but even if it is, staying the same and it's not an issue, defense is where the issue was last year, and to me, it is not really emerging. I think they've changed a couple pieces, and we could see some talent in and out that could help them, but I don't think this is going to be a defense that steps up completely. They released Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson, two corners that when they first got to the Titans, we thought they had a lot of talent. Adoree Jackson was young at the time. Malcolm Butler was kind of proven at the time, and they had big names to hopefully live up and help out a Titans defense with one of the top safeties when he was first paid his big check, and Kevin Byard. He thought that defense would turn into something, but now two of those corners are gone. They did add Janoris Jenkins, Jackrabbit Jenkins, which I'm a fan of, but still two star-powered guys in a secondary that aren't in their primes anymore. Kevin Byard and Janoris Jenkins are not going to carry this defense, and you added Bud Dupree, which I think will be a great leader for that front seven and hopefully get a little bit more pass rush than you did last year, which is not a step up from much. Unfortunately, you guys signed Jadeveon Clowney last year, and he got hurt, so you can't really do anything about that. But still, even with Bud Dupree and even with Janoris Jenkins being added to this team, these guys are out of their primes. Bud Dupree is still kind of young, but they can't do it alone. And defensively, I just don't see them holding up, especially when in the AFC South you have a Colts team that, with the money they have left, they'll probably re-sign all their guys, have a top 5 defense when healthy, and a Carson Wentz that I truly believe in on offense, and I don't think they will win the division. And then outside of the division, the AFC, arguably more competitive than the NFC, with the Dolphins and Patriots going to be fighting for a playoff spot along with the Chargers. Then you got those guys that are already proven, the Chiefs, the Bills, Browns, Ravens, Steelers might drop off, but either way, there's 7 or 8 teams or even 9 teams in the AFC that are really going to be fighting to make the top 7 in the playoffs.
And they do need to play, or they do have to play the West, the NFC West this year, so there's 4 teams in there that are potentially playoff caliber. So the Titans will have their work cut out for them. I do think they are at an advantage in the AFC South, one of the weaker divisions. I think the competitiveness will be increasing as the Jags hopefully draft Trevor Lawrence and figure that out there, and how maybe Carson Wentz. I mean, Carson Wentz, the pieces are there. Carson Wentz was obviously once an MVP caliber quarterback. He's back with his offensive coordinator. They could be a 12-win team. So I think this AFC South division will be getting better in the future. But for this next given season, I think the Titans will still be in contention for it 100%. Like I said, I think 9-7, 10-6 is still realistic. But Jay makes a good point with the defense. It's really just one of the weaker in the division. Texans and Jags don't have the good defense, but the Colts certainly do if they're able to get their pieces back. But the big thing for me is the Titans' offense putting a lot of pressure on Tannehill and really relying on Derrick Henry to be good.
Yeah, I mean, and overall, say I'm wrong, and I don't think they will make the playoffs or win the division, but say they do, because the Texans are free-falling. The Jaguars, I like Trevor Lawrence long-term, but a rookie to win the division in his first year, I don't see happening.
The Jags could go six wins, and you would be like, that's a great season.
Exactly.
So
and
Jags will be out of the picture, I think.
The Colts are one Carson Wentz injury away from being absent and not being competitive, and the Titans could have an easy walkway to a division title and make a playoff berth, but overall, I think they are in trouble when it comes down to the postseason. A.J. Brown, as good as he is, he's not going to compete with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and McCole Hardman, or the Bills with Stephon Diggs and now Emmanuel Sanders, or the Browns with the healthy OBJ and David Njoku and Austin Hooper and Jarvis Landry, and the list goes on and on. This team, when you compare them to the top dogs in the AFC, the Titans just don't match up outside of running back, and really we've seen him even be shut down to the nth degree of under 50 yards and basically an average quarterback or running back. I just don't think the Titans are a serious threat by any means.
Yeah, I do think they'll miss tight end, I'm sorry. Jonnu Smith a lot. He's obviously a tight end, his quarterback's best friend inside the red zone, so he was a good target there. And off the top of my head, Tanyan from Green Bay is available.
They actually fixed him up, or they actually got him back. So really, their best option is a draft, maybe. But even in the first round, outside of Kyle Pitts, you got to wait for the third or fourth round. I'm curious what the Titans will do to fill that gap, because tight end is a big spot in the red zone, of course, for scoring. Yeah, I honestly think the Bucs might release a guy in Cameron Brate or O.J. Howard, so they could look at one of them. David Njoku's possibly been on the trade block. It's not to say Jonnu Smith is irreplaceable, but right now, when the hole is not filled, it is a concern currently.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's what we got to say about the Titans. As far as in trouble, I think they're struggling to beat 500. For me, at least, I think they're 9-7, maybe 10-6. Jay doesn't necessarily have them even make the playoffs, but comment below what you think about the Titans headed into next year. And that's all for the video. And as far as our question today, my favorite Titans player is was Vince Young. I liked watching him in college at the University of Texas, so he kind of carried over in the NFL.
Yeah, I got to go with Chris Johnson, CJ2K. Loved his speed. How can you not like the fastest guy in the NFL?
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching. 2-Minute Warning.